Hey guys, welcome back to another episode with the Chicken Lady. Hope everybody's doing good. Today we're going to talk about proper handling of backyard chicken eggs. As you all well know, there's a lot of advice out there and we're going to be cutting through all the confusion. You have some folks that say wash immediately, refrigerate immediately, and then you have others that say don't dare wash those eggs and it's a-okay to leave them out on the kitchen counter. So like I say, I'm going to try to clarify all that for you guys today, and we're going to do a deep dive into some of the specifics and be a little more detailed about the bloom, and I'm going to explain that to you in depth. We're also going to talk about the science behind keeping the pointy end down on the egg. We're also going to give you a more specific timeline and time frame on the different ways to store fresh eggs. So let's get into it and let's get started. First things first, collecting your eggs. This is something that needs to be done daily, and in the times of extreme temperatures, twice a daily would not hurt if that is doable. If you're already a chicken owner, you know by now that they all like to congregate in one nest box. Even if you have 50 available for them, they are community nesters and they like to nest in the same spot, whether that be the ground or a glorified nest box if you're lucky. But with that said, with those hens in and out and they're fighting and they're tussling over, you know, that particular spot, if you're new to chickens and you're just getting started with this, there will be times that you go out to collect your eggs and you'll see that they've busted an egg and you've got yellow egg yolk everywhere, but they usually do a pretty good job of cleaning that up for you. They love cracked eggs, and hopefully you'll never run into this, but you probably will at some point, that when they find out that they like the taste of their own eggs, you may run into the problem of your hens eating their eggs, or one hen in particular finding out that she can go around and peck and open those eggs up, and that creates a whole nother problem for another video. But back to collecting the eggs, you want to do that in a timely manner. And like I say, in the extreme temperatures, if it's extremely hot or extremely cold, you want to try to do that twice daily. And that just leaves less opportunity for the hens to accidentally crack those eggs and hopefully get less dirty, less poop to deal with, and so on and so forth. So we've collected the eggs and now we've got them inside and on our kitchen counter, our kitchen table, and now we have the question, do we wash them or do we leave them dirty? And in the perfect world, you will be collecting clean eggs. Your hens will lay and keep everything nice and neat, and you go out there and you collect pristine, clean eggs. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. And to my newbies out there, if you're thinking that you're going to have the Pinterest imaged nest boxes every time you go out there, just wait. Number one, you'll have to fight with them about even laying in the nest box that you have made so convenient for them. And they'll fight you on that right off the bat. I can pretty much promise you. When you get your hens laying in a particular place, and that's their place of choice, and that's usually where they go to every day, just try to let them have their way and stick to that and make it as clean as possible. Whether you use bedding, pine shavings, straw, hay, nesting pads. If you'll stick around to the end of the video, I'll give you what I use to try to keep the cleanest eggs possible in collecting. So stick around for that. But overall, that's our goal, is to collect pretty well clean eggs right off the bat. If you succeed in doing this, I suggest to you to leave your eggs unwashed. Reason being is Mother Nature has done a masterpiece again, and those eggs come with their own natural protective sealant called the bloom, also known as a cuticle, that the hen lays. It's a protein-rich, thin layer that she lays on that egg as the last step of it coming out of the reproductive tract. When she lays that egg, if you ever get the opportunity to see a hen lay an egg, you will notice that that egg comes out wet. And you will also notice that she kind of stands and hovers over the egg. She's allowing that bloom to dry, which is very quick drying, and that seals the egg in a way that only Mother Nature can do. It allows that egg to still breathe, but yet seals the pores to keep bacteria out. And so you want to do everything possible to protect that bloom. And that bloom can be tougher than you think. If you have the opportunity, or you have hens that lay the colored eggs, I would suggest you just doing this for experimental reasons. If you'll wet that egg and wipe, and then let that dry back, you will see that bloom, and you can see that the bloom dries back. You'll see that it's a little more resilient than we give it credit for. But we don't want to wash or scrub, because that does break down the bloom, and it can remove it completely. So in a dream world, we're going to collect beautiful clean eggs from the nest right off the bat. And we're going to leave those nice, clean, beautiful eggs on our kitchen counter, kitchen table, place of preference. But I would suggest in the AC or in cooler temps, because that's going to hold the freshness a little longer. You can safely leave those unwashed eggs on your kitchen counter or at room temperature, let's say room temperature, for 2 to 3 weeks safely, no problem whatsoever. However, I have done this for much longer than 2 to 3 weeks. We'll get into how to, if you're concerned or have a little worry, I'll show you a way that you can test the freshness of the eggs a little later in the video. But again, if we're leaving them unwashed and they are clean by nature, then if you want to prolong that safe window of 2 to 3 weeks, then pop them in the fridge. Unwashed, I suggest keeping them in a carton so they're not drawing in, because again, that bloom is breathable. I would suggest keeping them in an egg carton. These days they have the fancy plastic ones, or you can just use a regular old paper carton or foam carton. Also, while we're in the fridge, we're going to put them in the body of the fridge. Don't place your eggs in the door of the refrigerator, because with the continuous opening and closing of the refrigerator, that can fluctuate the temp. Again, this is a little more for the washed eggs than it is the unwashed, but yet and still, it does cause a fluctuation of the temp more so than inside the body of the refrigerator. So I would suggest, maintaining them there in the body versus the door. Now, if you're living in reality and you go out and not all your eggs are super clean, or you've had a lot of rainfall, especially in the spring of the year, and your coop or your run or wherever your nesting spot for your hens that they have chose is a little muddy, they decide to just track poop all in the nest box for that day, or for whatever reason you go out and you've got some dirty eggs. It will happen. I promise you it will happen. I personally don't want poopy eggs sitting on my kitchen counter or my kitchen table. That's just me. There's two options here. If you have a spare refrigerator that's set aside just for eggs, maybe outside or maybe in a storage building or maybe under the carport or where have you, and you're comfortable putting those eggs in that refrigerator, again, I would go ahead and put them in a carton and refrigerating them. There's not really a problem there because, again, that protective bloom is in between the poop and the shell and entering into the shell. So you're pretty much protected there. However, if you don't have that convenience of having a refrigerator for poopy eggs, the second option would be to clean the eggs. So let's break down when and if you decide to clean your eggs or wash your fresh backyard eggs. I'm not saying that this is a complete no-no. This is completely fine. If you prefer to have clean washed eggs, that's not a problem. We're going to take you step by step in the proper way to do that. Number one is that you're going to use warm water. Not cold and not hot. You're just going to use warm water. The cold water can actually draw bacteria into the egg when you're washing. So you don't want to use cold water and you don't want to use real hot water because that's going to heat up the interior of the egg. So just use warm water. The idea is to, just as long as it's not colder than the interior of that egg. That's the only goal we're trying to achieve here. But you want to not soak your eggs. You want to just hold them under the faucet and kind of give them a little rinse, and then take a paper towel or a rag or what have you and wipe your eggs. And you might be amazed at what you can do with a dry paper towel or a dry rag. That may be sufficient to get them clean enough to leave them out on your counter without having to involve water whatsoever. But in the event that you do and they're really messy eggs, like I say, just hold them under that running water, wipe them with a paper towel or rag, and then I usually just lay out a kitchen towel and lay them over to the side and let them air dry. I do this for the reason of further protecting whatever bloom I have left, because like I say, those are a little more resilient than we give them credit for. So with that said, don't rub them dry. Just lay them on that kitchen towel, especially if you have a ceiling fan above. They'll dry pretty quickly. Let them completely dry before you put them in any kind of egg holder. Do not use soap either, just water. You don't want to do the soap because that further breaks down that protective barrier, the bloom. And in the event that you make it a normal routine to wash all your eggs, they need to go in the refrigerator immediately after they dry. And you need to keep them in the fridge. At that point, once you wash your eggs, a good rule of thumb is to treat it like milk. Keep it cool. A good rule of thumb, a good time frame for those eggs to remain fresh and safe for eating is about 2 months washed. Okay, now let's talk about storing our eggs. You may have heard this before, but I'm going to go into a little deeper explanation as to why. You always want to store your eggs pointy end down. When you buy a carton of eggs from the grocery store, the pointy end's always up and the fat end's always down into the carton. This is the wrong way to do eggs. You want to do it completely opposite. So storing it pointy end up, this causes the air cell to rise and move closer to the yolk, which can increase the moisture loss in the egg, and it can also allow bacteria to travel through the air cell and into the yolk of the egg. It also causes the yolk to become off-centered, which is why this is a good habit to always store pointy end down, not only if you're using it for the proper handling of eating eggs, but it's also a good habit on hatching eggs. You always want to, if you're collecting eggs to hatch in an incubator, you always want to store pointy end down also. Again, to keep that yolk centered of the egg for a more viable chick and development. So always store pointy end down regardless. Just get in the habit as a backyard chicken keeper. When you collect and store eggs, always pointy end down. All right, in the event that your hens are on egg overload and you have way too many eggs, you can always freeze your eggs. A good method of doing this is if you have a muffin tin or a muffin pan, you can actually put liners. You can use the silicone or the paper liners and go ahead and crack 1 or 2 eggs, depending on how large your eggs are, into each little muffin hole, and you can go ahead and kind of whisk it or break the yolk and freeze those, and those will keep in the freezer for a very long time. Another thing you can do is the pickling. You can pickle eggs. You can preserve them with water glassing. There's a lot of videos out there to show you how to do that. That's using hydrated lime and water. You can always gift your eggs, lend some to your neighbor. You can go ahead and batch cook eggs and freeze them that way. The possibilities are endless. You just have to get a little creative. Okay, before we get to how to test for freshness, I'll show you that method in just a second. We'll go inside and I'll show you a quick way to test that. But before we do, let's recap for just a minute. I want to be sure that we're all clear on the time frames on washed and unwashed eggs. For unwashed eggs, left at room temperature, you're looking at 2 to 3 weeks to be on the safe side. I have kept them that way a lot longer. And after I show you this little quick test in just a minute, if you're in question, you can always do this to check and be sure that you're still on the safe side. But if you put unwashed eggs in the refrigerator, they can last up to 3 months or more. Again, if there's ever a question, you can check it by this method I'm going to show you in just a second. Washed eggs have to be put in the refrigerator immediately. No more than a couple of hours. Can be kept in the fridge for up to 2 months. Okay, now let's go inside and I'm going to show you in the kitchen how we can test the freshness if there's ever a question if we've got good or bad eggs. And also, if you happen to find where a hen has hid a nest away and you stumble upon 2 or 3 eggs or a whole clutch of 10 or more, and this works for duck eggs, chicken eggs, guinea eggs, goose eggs, any kind of egg, you can use this method on to check for freshness because all eggs have an air cell. And this is the science behind the method. So if you ever find a little clutch of eggs, stumble upon those and you're wondering, oh, I wonder how long they've been there or if they're fresh, you can try this method out. Let's go inside and I'll show you how to do it. Okay, guys. So this method is called the float test, and I'm sure that y'all have heard of it by now. But for those that may be new or haven't heard of it yet, you just want to fill a bowl, again, with just warm water, not hot, not cold, just in case the eggs are good. You don't want to draw any bacteria in using the cold water. I have 2 eggs. This one is the brown one is probably working on 3 weeks old, and this one was laid today. So I'm going to show you what we'll be looking for in this float test. So just gently place it on the bottom, and this is like I said, this egg was laid today. This is fresh as you can get. And this is what you want to see. You want to see it laying on its side and all the way to the bottom. No floating whatsoever. And the theory behind this, or how this works, the science behind it is, again, the air cell forms on the fat end of the egg. The longer the life of the egg, the bigger that air cell gets. So once it gets to a certain point, it has enough air in it to make that fat end actually come up to the top, and an extremely bad egg will completely float. So again, this is a super fresh egg laid today, completely on its side and completely submerged to the bottom of the bowl. That's when you know they are super fresh. Okay, I'm going to show you the difference. Okay, you see this egg standing on its end, and it's standing on the pointy end, and the fat end is reaching toward the surface of the water, which is where the air cell is. So we know that this egg has a much larger air cell. The larger the air cell, the older the egg, because over time that egg draws air in from the pores of its shell, and this is what causes them to float. The bigger the air cell gets, the more that fat end will come up. So this is the progression. Flat, and then the bigger that air cell gets, the more it's going to stand, and that air cell is going to rise to the top of the water. If that egg, I don't have one old enough to show you guys, but if that egg completely floats or it's not touching the bottom of the bowl whatsoever, that is a bad egg. Do not crack it in your kitchen. Just take it outside, throw it in the woods, whatever you need to do to discard it. But that egg is no longer any good. But that's how you can tell the freshness. When you're hatching eggs, and as the life of the egg in nature, that air cell is in that egg to provide the chick air to breathe in this egg. So the closer it gets to hatch, hence the older the egg gets, the bigger the air cell is going to get. When the hen first lays that egg, if you were able to watch a hen lay an egg and you take it inside and candle that egg, there's no air cell whatsoever. It has not formed yet. This is something that takes time, and it progresses and it grows larger and larger the longer the life of the egg. Another thing you want to watch for on proper handling is cracks. I'm going to show you another little trick that I always use, especially on eggs that I give away to my neighbors or give away to friends and family, because I have a fear of passing bad eggs on to somebody, and not because they're not fresh, but if there's a lot of times that these eggs will get a hairline crack or a hairline fracture in the shell that we cannot see with our naked eye. And this breaks that barrier, that protective barrier, and bacteria seeps in. So it can be this egg that was laid today can have a hairline crack, and by the end of the week, this egg is full of bacteria. And I don't want to risk giving that to friends or family. And so I will show you an extra step that I take it to the next step a little bit further. I actually candle these eggs. And I'm checking for hairline cracks that I cannot see with my eye, because this is very important. I'll show you that now. Okay. I should have showed you this egg with the light on before I turned the light off. But I'll show you once I turn the light back on that with my naked eye, I can't see anything wrong with this egg. But did you see that spider crack? And if I can do it gently, you can see it open up. If I put a little pressure, I'm trying not to put too much because I don't want it to bust on me. But you can see it opening up very well right there. But looking at this egg with my naked eye, I cannot see that crack. This is one reason why I always check, especially if I'm giving to friends and family. But while I've got the light off, we're going to come back to that in just a second. I want to show you, this was our egg from today, okay? This was laid today, and I was going to show you, there's so much light still coming in the window, but that air cell is about the size of the end of this flashlight, okay? I'm going, for reference, the end of this flashlight is about the size of the end of my finger, okay? That was laid today. This brown one, we're not going to be able to see the air cell because it's so dark. This was the older egg. So this is one here that's not quite as old as the chocolate or the dark brown egg, but it is older than the one that was laid today. Do you see how much larger that air cell is compared to the end of my flashlight? Okay, that's what I mean about the bigger the air cell, the older the egg. I'm getting my hair in the water, but let me flip the light back on. So if you can candle, this is my little pocket flashlight that I use for my eating eggs to candle to check for cracks. Now, on my hatching eggs and incubating the eggs, I have a candling light built into my incubator, and I use that. But just any simple little flashlight will work for this. But I strongly suggest that you do this if you're giving eggs away. The reason I don't do them for the ones that I'm eating per se, I do sometimes, is because this is my other tip. Always, and you'll see this in some of my baking videos, like where I bake pound cakes and stuff. If you've already seen that, you know that I am adamant about cracking eggs, single eggs, into a separate bowl. I always do this. I don't care if I'm cooking breakfast and I'm making scrambled eggs. I do them one at a time. I usually do them in a little small, these are my little egg bowls. They're just small little plastic bowls, but no matter what I'm doing, if I'm baking and a cake's calling for 6 eggs, or if I'm cooking scrambled eggs for breakfast for the family, and I'm using 10 eggs to make a big pan of scrambled eggs, I crack every one of them individually. Number one, I'm terrible about getting shells. So just one egg and one tiny shell is a lot easier to fish out of this little tiny bowl than it is the big pan or my whole recipe of a pound cake. Number two, I'm visually looking and smelling that egg to make sure that it's A-okay. But that's just because I deal with chicken eggs, fresh yard chicken eggs every day. And like I say, let me back up a minute on this too. This egg that had the hairline crack, I don't care if it was laid today. I don't care if it was laid 5 minutes ago. I'm not going to eat this egg, because once that hairline fracture, then the egg is compromised. That barrier, the protective bloom, because you saw when I spread or put pressure on that egg that it has a complete entry into the egg. Do not eat those eggs. Just throw them in the woods, discard them however you may, but do not risk eating those eggs. If you see a hairline crack, throw it out. But anyway, I hope you guys got something out of this video, and I hope it may have educated you on some level, somewhere along the lines. And if so, please consider hitting that like button and possibly subscribing, because we're always giving chicken info on the Chicken Lady playlist. You can follow along. But this channel has, we're a little different than everybody else because we cover a lot of ground. with our channel. We do cooking, we do hunting, we do fishing, we do a lot of catfishing, we do gardening, we do camping. We do a lot of things. This is our life, and we try to share it with you guys. So check out our channel, go to our playlist. I try to keep everything very categorized for that reason, because it may be that you have no interest whatsoever in hunting and fishing, but you're here because of the chicken information. In that case, just stay on the chicken playlist. But like I say, we have a lot, and also I have a egg handling instruction template. I'll have it linked down in the description below. You can click on that link. It's absolutely free. It's just little templates that I made, like if you were giving or selling at farmer's market your eggs. It's a cute, neat little, if you downsize the print size per page, then it is perfect to just put in a carton of eggs for your customers, or if you're giving your eggs away, or you're gifting the eggs, to educate people on the proper handling of fresh yard eggs. So like I say, that's absolutely free for you guys. It's something that I made, and it's something that I use, and I wanted to share with you. So if you have interest in that, like I say, you can find it in the description below, the link for that. But I guess that about wraps this video up. Like I said, I hope it's cleared the confusion a little bit, because there is a lot of information out there, and some of it contradicting. That's your basics on egg handling. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I try to keep a close eye on the comments, and I'll be glad to answer them to the best of my ability. And if you have any suggestions, or if you have any tips or anything you would like to share, please feel free to drop those in the comments. Also, I want this to be a community place where we can learn and grow and share everything together. So that's what the comments are for. Use them. We'll pass information back and forth. I told you I would also share the way that I keep my nest boxes clean. The clean as I can keep them when my hens decide to cooperate with me. I really highly recommend these. This is the video where I'm trying them out. Been using them for a couple months now, and I like them. I really do. They're very durable, and they help out a lot with keeping the eggs clean. If you're in need of nest box bedding for cleaner eggs, check out this video right here to see what I use for my nest boxes. See you on the next one, guys. Thanks.